Have you ever wondered how a single event can shift the balance of power on the global stage? Let's rewind to the mid-20th century, to the Suez Crisis of 1956. This was more than a mere dispute over a canal. It marked a pivotal point in the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East, altering power dynamics that had held sway for generations. Picture a stage where Britain and France, grand old colonial powers, played leading roles. Their influence spread across continents, including the Middle East, but winds of change were blowing. Enter Egypt's President Gamal Abdel Nasser, a new actor on this stage. He set the wheels in motion with a bold move, the nationalization of the Suez Canal. This was not just about control of a waterway. It was a challenge to the old order, a statement of emerging national power. So the stage was set for a crisis that would shift the tides of power in the Middle East. As the world watched, the Suez Crisis unfolded in a series of dramatic events. It all began in the summer of 1956, when Egypt's president, Gamal Abdel Nasser, announced the nationalization of the Suez Canal. This bold move was seen as a direct challenge to the colonial powers of Britain and France, who had controlled this crucial waterway since the 19th century. The declaration sent shockwaves across the globe, inciting a flurry of diplomatic efforts to defuse the escalating situation. Yet, despite the best efforts of international mediators, these attempts proved fruitless. The stakes were high, and the tension was palpable. The Suez Canal was more than just a waterway, it was a symbol of power and influence in the Middle East. As diplomatic attempts faltered, the crisis took a sharp turn in October of the same year. Britain, France, and Israel, unwilling to lose control over the vital passage, launched a military intervention. This tripartite aggression was a desperate bid to regain control of the canal and to remove Nasser from power. However, the plot was not as seamless as planned. The intervention was met with fierce resistance from the Egyptians, who were determined to defend their sovereignty. Amidst the chaos and conflict, the United Nations stepped in. In November of 1956, the UN called for an immediate ceasefire. The world held its breath as the warring factions laid down their arms, marking the end of active hostilities. But the crisis was far from over. The repercussions of this conflict would reverberate across the globe for years to come. In a span of a few months, the Suez Crisis had left its mark on the world stage. It had challenged the status quo, reshaping the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. The events of 1956 had proven that the era of traditional colonial powers was waning, and a new epic with new actors was beginning to unfold. Now imagine the world map being redrawn in the aftermath of the Suez Crisis. The Suez Crisis, a dramatic event of 1956, was a game-changer in the global political arena. It marked a significant shift in power dynamics, with Britain and France, the traditional colonial powers, experiencing a decline. This was the moment when their grip on global politics started to slacken, their influence began to wane, and their status as world leaders started to falter. In the wake of this crisis, new players emerged onto the stage, ready to claim their part in global politics. The United States and the Soviet Union, both superpowers in their own right, became more assertive, taking on leading roles in global affairs. Their emergence signaled a new era, an era of Cold War politics, where the balance of power was no longer monopolized by a few colonial powers. The Middle East, the epicenter of the Suez Crisis, was not just a passive observer in this shift. The region was deeply affected by the crisis and the changes it brought about. The Suez Crisis triggered a wave of Arab nationalism, a powerful force that changed the course of the region's history. This wave was not just a reaction to the crisis itself, but also a response to the changing global power dynamics. Countries in the Middle East, previously under the influence or control of colonial powers, found themselves in a new position. They were no longer mere pawns in a larger game, but active players with their own ambitions and aspirations. This rise of Arab nationalism marked a turning point in the region's history, a moment of self-assertion and a quest for autonomy. The Suez Crisis was not just a momentary disruption in global politics, it was a catalyst for change, reshaping the world map and altering the course of history. It marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new one, a time of shifting power dynamics and emerging geopolitical actors. And so, the Suez Crisis served as a stepping stone for the transformation of the Middle East. In the grand theater of world history, the Suez Crisis was a defining act. This crisis, unfolding in 1956, marked the decline of traditional colonial powers and heralded the emergence of new geopolitical actors in the Middle East. It served as a catalyst for significant change, influencing global politics and shaping the region's future. The aftermath of the crisis saw a significant shift in geopolitical dynamics. As we reflect on the past, we realize that the ripples of the Suez Crisis are still felt in today's geopolitical landscape. History indeed has a way of echoing into the present,